Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have you join us tonight. My name is Maya King, and I am the Marquette Challenge Student Coordinator for this year's co-host school, Virginia Commonwealth University. I am joined tonight by Ashley DeJacco, who is representing the Marquette University Student Coordinators. We would like to extend a warm welcome to those who are brand new to the Marquette Challenge and thank the students who have been fundraising for research this year. It has been amazing to see everyone's events so far, and we look forward to seeing even more in the upcoming months. We are so happy to have you here tonight and hope our speaker panel helps you better prepare for the next steps in your physical therapy career. Tonight's event is made possible through our Marquette Challenge title sponsor, HPSO CNA, and we would like to thank them for their support for our mission. If you would like to make a shout out for your school, please feel free to post in the comments section on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching tonight, and we'll share your comments right here on the screen. We are so excited to hear from tonight's speakers. Many of us chose this profession because it is nurturing, welcoming community. We are thankful to our speakers for their ongoing mentorship and support for future PTs and PTAs.
So before we begin, I'd like to tell you about the VCU-Marquette Challenge. Since 1989, students like us have been raising money for research throughout this student-led grassroots challenge. Each year, hundreds of future PTs and PTAs host fundraisers across the U.S., from 5Ks to cornhole tournaments and everything in between, to benefit the Foundation for Physical Therapy Research. The foundation is the only national nonprofit solely dedicated to funding physical therapy research grants, scholarships, and fellowships across all PT specialties. Every donation, big or small, is an investment in the profession. And student fundraisers make a huge difference. Since the beginning of the challenge, students like you have raised more than $4.5 million for research. In addition to giving forward our future profession through research, the challenge helps students build professional skills and networks that will help us post-graduation. If your school is not on the list of participating schools, get on it today. A gift in any dollar amount can get your school on the list and qualify you for recognition. It's also not too late to connect with your fellow students and plan your challenge fundraiser. The deadline for the foundation to receive all donations is May 16th. Although there is friendly competition among schools, participation at any level is what matters most. Visit marquettechallenge.com to get started today.
And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker panel for tonight. First is Eva Norman. Eva Norman is the founder and president of Live Your Life Physical Therapy based in Minnesota and Florida. The company specializes in wellness, prevention, and health promotion. She has been an active APTA member her entire career of over 20 years. Eva currently serves as a trustee for the Foundation for PT Research and an APTA Minnesota's Federal Affairs Liaison and Delegate. Most recently, she served as the chair for the PTPAC. And Jacob Capin is an assistant professor at Marquette University, the founding school of the Marquette Challenge. Dr. Capin is a clinician scientist trained as both a licensed physical therapist and a research scientist. He was recently awarded a $1.9 million grant from the National Institutes of Health for a 5-year research program to look at the impact of prior injury and sedentary behavior in later health for former athletes. He's also a 2-time FPTR funding recipient, having received 2 doctoral scholarships while studying at the University of Delaware. Our final speaker, Dan Mills, has an extensive background as a practice owner and serves on the American Physical Therapy Association Board of Directors. He is currently the medical director for Western Rehabilitation Health Network and the director of occupational medicine for Mountain Land Rehabilitation. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Let's get started. We will have about a 20-minute discussion with some questions submitted by those who registered to attend tonight's event, followed by a Q&A with our audience afterwards. And I'm going to turn it back to Ashley for our questions.
Eva, Jacob, and Dan, welcome. We are very glad to have you here to share your knowledge about what to expect once we've landed our first PT job out of school. Why don't we start off with what was your first professional role out of your PT program, and what surprised you most about that transition?
So I'll take that one to start. My first professional role was actually 3 roles, and I was a full-time PhD student at the University of Delaware as part of an NIH-funded DPT PhD program, dual degree program. And I work concurrently as a per diem sports and orthopedic physical therapist at the University of Delaware, and also as a teaching assistant in the University of Delaware DPT curriculum. One of the things that surprised me is that you're quickly expected, or at least it feels like you're quickly expected to kind of have all the answers. And it's okay to still be learning as you get out of school, where I consider myself a lifelong learner. I think many of us, all of us probably do. And to have the ability to go and find those answers through research, through continuing education courses, through your own studies, as well as having those mentors and colleagues who support you is really important.
Awesome. And then a little follow-up question to that. Were there any strategies that you used to create a good work-life balance?
Yes, so I have plenty of strategies. I'll leave you with 3 tips. So number 1, determine what is right for you. So you'll have more autonomy after you get out of PT school than perhaps you did of your schedule when you were in school. And determining what's the right work-life balance for each person is important. And that's different for each people. And I can give plenty of examples, but I'll leave it at that for now. Number 2, establish priorities. So prioritize what makes you healthy and happy. You'll actually be more effective and more efficient at work when you do. For me, that's exercise, that's family and friends, that's getting out and exploring nature, music, food, all sorts of other things, but prioritizing those things in life that really make you come alive. And make time for those priorities as well. One of the ways you can do that is my tip number 3, which is to learn when and how to say no. It's really tough, but really important.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. This next question kind of goes towards both Eva and Dan, so you all can figure out who wants to answer it first. What do you expect of new grads that you supervise in their very first role?
And Dan, you and I can go back and forth on this because there's a lot of things. Okay, so students, first of all right, I would say ask a lot of questions. I think it's important to understand your job description, the expectations that your employer has for you, and to be really well aware, because a lot of it, will potentially affect your performance review. And then 2, find the best form of communication. It's amazing how much can be solved with good communication with your supervisor. I'd also say 2, you're straight out of school, so you're full of knowledge. Trust me when I say this, there's plenty of things that you're going to know that I will benefit from. So share that knowledge. And then also, it's important for me to develop a good relationship with each one of my employees. So I would say, share your passions with your employee, your interests, talk to me about your personal life. Would love to get to know you. So I think that's really important in developing that relationship. And I would say along with that too is, if you're an APTA member and want to get engaged and involved, share that too. My gosh, it was amazing how many jobs I've had and where I was probably the only member, but that usually gave me a lot of great opportunities. I can't tell you how many doors were open just sharing that. So I would say highlight the fact that you're a member. So those are a few things I would say.
Awesome.
I would add to that. That was a great list, and both the information that Jacob shared and Eva's knowledge. These are fantastic examples, and both rock stars in our profession. I will tell you, just from my board seat, these are people who I hope you will listen to and watch their careers carefully. These are people that are worth drafting off of. I would add that you guys have been through an education at a really, really tough time, and everybody knows that. Every employer out there understands that you've had a COVID education, and we're all ready and excited to help backfill in any way that we need to help make up the difference. We know that it's been hard to do things remotely at certain points in your education that none of the rest of us had to do remotely. And we expect that. We don't expect you to know everything, but we do expect a little bit of autonomy and a willingness to try. Now, if you're talking about something simple like a patient load, if I have to spend as much time helping you to see the patient as when you were in your clinical phase, it's really, really hard for me to give you the kind of salary that you want. And I want to be able to pay you as much as I possibly can. But that means figuring out what's a reasonable amount to expect. And I think we talk about that a little bit later. But I would say that grit that got you into PT school and got you through PT school, it takes on a little different flavor in your first job. And don't let imposter syndrome limit your capability. Eva said it really, really well, that you want to, you're good enough, you're smart enough, you understand. And in many, many corners of physical therapy, you're coming out of school with much more knowledge than we do. So we're excited to lean on you, and we're okay with you leaning on us too.
Awesome. Good to know. A little follow-up with that then. Are there any common mistakes or overall skills PT or PTA grads could learn from to better perform in their first role?
Boy, that one I would say probably the biggest pitfall that I worry about is if you've had a clinical set of experiences and you're trying to figure out if I'm a whatever therapist. We still struggle in our profession with dogma, and dogma comes in lots of different forms. Therapists will hitch their wagon to one particular school of thought. And I would encourage you to stay broad. Don't worry about trying to focus on a particular treatment technique or a particular school of thought. There are a lot of different ways to do it, and try to continue to survey large fields. And don't be afraid to continue your education in other areas that are not in your lane. I started out in ortho, but I will tell you, especially in a climate where I'm seeing probably 40% of my patients are direct access patients, I need my neuro, I need my peds, I need my acute care. I need to be able to understand systems that I have to admit, when I first got out of school, I thought, I don't think I'm going to need that stuff very much. I can do a good ortho exam. And I've realized so often, and I've had to go back and I spend time to make sure that I can stay current on those things. It's important to stay broad.
Awesome. Any other comments from either Eva or Jacob?
Yeah, I'll share something too. I think I knew that I wanted to start my business. It was actually a goal of mine. Obviously, I have my business today. And my first job working at a rehab hospital, as a new grad, I thought, gosh, when would I ever get an opportunity to have like any type of, managerial experience? But I asked during my orientation if my supervisor, would need help with anything. And first thing he said, he's like, well, what are you interested in? And so I shared with them that I enjoyed reading research. Imagine that. I also shared with him that I loved event planning. At the time, I was doing something on the side, kind of a side hustle, planning weddings. So I thought, yeah, let's share about that. And then I also shared that I really enjoyed continuing education, but unfortunately at the school I couldn't really afford to go. And what's so amazing is that immediately he was like, oh my gosh, could use your help on all three. All right. First, you're going to start running all of our staff meetings. Like, gosh, wow. And then secondly, he put me in charge of running Journal Club, which I thought was great. And then thirdly, he actually helped pay for my APTA dues and made me the APTA liaison and encouraged me to get involved in the continuing education committee, which was amazing. Students, little do you know, but when you get involved in these committees in many states across the country, having lived in 4 states, you can get a massive discount on continuing education. Here in Minnesota, it was practically all paid for just being a committee member. So that helped me go to all my, my state conferences, which is great, which gave me a little extra money to go to national conferences. So there you go.
Awesome.
So don't be afraid to ask. You never know. Sometimes doors can open when you least expect it.
That's super awesome advice. Alrighty, moving on to the next one. What does it mean to find a mentor, and what is the role of mentorship in developing professional skills? And is this common? Anyone can answer, whoever wants to go next.
I may kick that one off. I will tell you that mentorship, after being out for 24 years, I continue to be mentored by amazing people, and I continue to seek out mentors. Even I share some of the very same mentors, and Jacob's background at University of Delaware, a couple of my very favorite people that I still consider mentors are there. But I would tell you right now, even as someone that's attending physical therapy school, you should be mentoring somebody. It's important to pass it on. And I would tell you just one of the passionate areas for our board right now, from a DE&I perspective, if you want to see things change in our profession, the very first thing you should start doing is looking behind you to see who you can help that's coming behind you. And somebody that comes from a culture or from a background that is not going to have the same advantages that many of us had. So that ability to pass it on, start mentoring now. So if you want to be mentored, you should also be a mentor. And that happens a lot at APTA. I would say the best place to find mentors is to find your tribe at APTA. And that can happen in sections, that can happen in chapters, those obscure little committees. And even I have a very different leadership journey, but it involves being involved in an obscure committee that nobody was willing to volunteer for, and we showed up. And that willingness to give back resulted in friendships and mentorships that I can't tell you how valuable those people's input into my professional life and my happiness and my personal life has been.
Awesome.
I think mentors are so critical, and mentors at so many different stages and levels. The further you get out from school, the more you have to go seek those mentors out, the less that they're, kind of ingrained, but you have to really seek those out. And I would encourage you to seek it out in all facets and aspects of your life and work. So for me, as a clinician scientist, I, especially right out of school, but very much now, seek out clinical mentors as well as research mentors, right? And that might be different people. It might be people that have different skill sets. And then having people outside of that, in your own, work, personal life is important to have people that are guides or mentors or confidants that can help you walk that and maintain that work-life balance that we talked about. It's also important to have senior mentors. I think Dan mentioned some of the, alluded to some people that are probably some of my senior established mentors for my PhD training, but also having step ahead mentors, people that I did my PhD with or did my postdoc with or now, junior faculty with, are those step ahead mentors that maybe are a year or 2 or 3 ahead of me and have been very recently in their shoes. So for the students out there, your buddy in your class that was a year ahead of you, or the person who just graduated a year or 2 before you, those are probably excellent people to be those step ahead mentors to help you walk those pathways as well.
Yeah, those are all great suggestions. And when I was in your shoes, actually, as a student, I was advised to find a mentor. And at first I was like, what is that exactly? And I remember one of my professors saying, it's someone that can help you both personally and professionally, perhaps. And it should be a long-term relationship. So, and her greatest advice, which I love this for you all to share this, is she said, surround yourself with excellence. When you go to these conferences, find those people you aspire to be that motivate you, that you're just like on the edge of your seat, like hanging on every word that comes out of your mouth. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's who I want to be. Go up to them after they present and introduce yourself. Invite them for coffee, invite them out to lunch, whatever. You'd be amazed how flattering that is. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you, when people come up to me, I'm like, really? You want to be mentored by me? Like, it's just so flattering. And I've never said no to a student. So, and I was so impressed to see like how many over the years, whether it's at a national conference or at a local conference, have been more than willing to help me along my journey. And so, yeah, both personally and professionally. So don't be afraid to ask, but seek out those people that you want to be. Those are the best mentors.
Awesome. Okay.
One more thing to add too, Ashley, if that's okay. As part of the NIH Director's Early Independence Award grant that I have, you actually have, and this is true for many, early stage career development type awards as well. You have to create a mentoring team. And so I very intentionally created a mentoring team that has all these different skills and attributes that I either don't have or that I aspire to have or that I'm trying to earn. Right. And so on that team, I have a medical doctor who's a team physician. I have a research scientist, Dr. Sandra Hunter, who's an expert in sex differences in aging. I have a kinesiology guru professor, Dr. Don Newman. I have a cardiovascular physiologist, a nutritionist, and a registered dietitian, an expert in physical activity monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So I've created this team that has those skills that I don't have, or that I haven't yet developed, or that I will never have individually, because you can't have everything. And so you have to bring that group together.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Alrighty. And then I'm going to continue probing you specifically, Jacob. What advice would you offer for PTs who are considering a career in academia or research?
Yes. So first off, I love research. I love academia. I think it's an awesome place to be. So if you're like, yeah, I don't know, thinking about it, give it a shot. But this is what I'd recommend. Go talk to your professors, see what they do, talk to especially talk to all of them, but especially ones that are involved in research in some capacity. Ask to come and shadow, volunteer, observe, just get involved somehow. The more breadth of opportunity that you can get early on, the better. So go, be in a lab, experience it, just ask to watch a data collection. And then, if it seems like, okay, this is something I might want to do, then see if you're able to volunteer or work in a research lab. Many programs have opportunities for students to do that. I know personally, I love to have students get involved in my research. It's a great way to help. The other thing I'd say is really figure out what is your career goal. So there's many different ways to be involved in academic physical therapy or research, and getting a PhD is one pathway, but it's not necessarily the right pathway. And you don't have to get a PhD to be involved in some aspects of teaching or research. There are research physical therapists who work in an environment who maybe don't have any additional training but just have that interest. But knowing, there's a PhD or a doctor of science for people that are really geared towards the research focused pathway, that also prepares you well to be a professor in physical therapy. But if your goal is primarily to teach, you actually be better off getting an EDD, a doctorate in education, or potentially getting doing a residency, getting a specialty certification, going that route, and doing some clinical practice plus teaching. So you really have to figure out what is the right balance for you. How much is that research? How much of that is teaching? How much of that is clinical practice or clinical instructing? And kind of the pathway is different. There's many different resources out there, including webinars and educational sessions at the American Physical Therapy Association conference. Things like residency versus PhD versus other types of continuing education. And I'm sure many of your professors, like myself, are happy to chat with you more about it.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then, last but not least, there are a lot of questions about salary. What advice could you offer new grads in terms of what to expect, how to negotiate, so on and so forth?
Maybe I'll kick this one off. Money is PT's least favorite subject. We hate talking about money. Most of us went into this knowing that we could have gone to business school, and we don't like money, so we became PTs. So one of the harsh realities of physical therapy is that physical therapy is still a business. And so there are a couple different things you have to consider when you think about your first job. Sometimes we think, well, where do I want to live? And that's definitely should be high on the list. But if you want to move to an area that has very poor reimbursement and has a high density of physical therapists already, it's going to be a difficult thing if you've got $200,000 worth of student loans, and you've got a large number of practices that are making people see a large number of patients per day or per week. So asking lots of questions. A question that you might not think about is figuring out what the average reimbursement is in a particular market. Because if the reimbursement is high, if you go to some parts of the Midwest or some areas in, say, for example, Washington State or Oregon or Wisconsin, reimbursement's pretty solid and pretty decent. And as a result, the salaries are solid and decent. Also recognize that everybody wants to live in a college town, and everybody wants to live where there's a bunch of fun outdoor stuff to do. And nobody wants to live in the middle of nowhere and in rural America. And unfortunately, sometimes those are the places that need physical therapists the most. So trying to balance all those things out, and with your interests from a specialty standpoint and mentorship, cost of living needs to be factored in as well. And then when you start to have that conversation with a prospective employer, when you start asking about the business, ask how many patients will I be seeing on an average day? How much ancillary staff will I be responsible for? So sometimes it seems nice that you've got a PTA and you've got techs that are helping you, but sometimes that also means that there's an expectation that you're going to carry a heavier load in order to pay for those individuals. So there are pros and cons. Are they going to isolate you in a location where you're not going to have any other therapists around you in any form of mentorship? And what's the reputation of the clinic? Are they going to give you a sufficient time for an eval, or are you going to be expected to crank it out and almost start skirting the Medicare rules? So those are conversations that are much easier to have on the front end, so that you don't end up with 2 months in and you think, I don't think I want to be a physical therapist anymore. So that means that there are difficult decisions that you have to make on the front end. Ask those questions early. And I would start asking them now. If you have a good relationship with your clinical instructors, it's not inappropriate to ask, what is the average reimbursement for what we do here? Because you can extrapolate. When you know approximately how much you're generating for the clinic, you can calculate, what's a reasonable salary to ask for. Another consideration is a benefits package. So depending on the circumstance, I've always felt like it was important to pay an enormous portion of the health insurance for my employees. Some value that more than others. But what I found is, for employees to stay a long time, they may not value it at the beginning, but as they get to mid-career, that becomes a very, very high value benefit. So those other benefits, 401k matching. Boy, I would squeeze every penny. If an employer is offering to match you, that's free money. So make sure when you're looking at the salary negotiation that you consider every opportunity that they're going to compensate you. But recognize you got to pay for yourself, and figure out if you can make the math pencil.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that seems to be all the time we have for questions tonight. If we were unable to answer your question, please feel free to reach out to us via email at marquettechallenge@foundation4pt.org. Thank you so much to our incredible speaker panel for joining us tonight and offering your important perspectives. I'll now turn it back over to Maya to wrap it up.
I want to again thank our speakers so much for being here and sharing their knowledge and experiences, and it's been insightful to hear your perspectives. Before we come to a close, I have a few reminders for everyone as we enter the home stretch for the 2021-2022 VCU-Marquette Challenge. First, stay connected. We're all in this together. Social media is one of our greatest resources to spread the word. Make sure you tag Challenge for PT, and we will share your events on the Challenge and Foundation social media channels. The VCU-Marquette Challenge Student Toolkit is available for you to use on the Marquette Challenge website. It has ideas for fundraisers for those who are just getting started and additional resources to make your event successful. You can even create your own fundraising page through Just Giving, a crowd-funded platform that allows you to customize your own page for your fundraiser and invite friends, family, community members to join you via social media. As a reminder, any donation, big or small, gets your school on the list of fundraising schools and ultimately helps advance our profession. And lastly, the deadline for the 2021-2022 VCU-Marquette Challenge is May 16th, 2022. All donations must be received by the foundation by the state. Once again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions. We are here to support you. If you want to set up a separate meeting, go ahead and shoot us an email and we will get that underway. Thank you all again, and we really appreciate your time and interest in the VCU-Marquette Challenge. And once again, thank you to our amazing speaker panel for volunteering your time and sharing your valuable insights tonight.